Hello, hello, welcome to the Cafe on Air podcast. I'm Big Italy 42, joined as I do on Tuesdays and Fridays by Spencer Limbach, Spencer _ JL on Twitter, and we got a nice slate of games tonight, man. You ready to dive into this?
Yeah, definitely. Happy Friday to you and all the Fantasy Cafe listeners out there. As usual, Wednesdays and Fridays are the big nights in NBA, and tonight's really no different.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. We got a whole bunch of injury news, a whole bunch of potential guys getting bumps and things like that. So we'll get into that, and obviously, which guys are worth forcing into your lineups, which guys we're going to stay away from. But talking FanDuel and DraftKings here on this podcast, and we're going to go ahead and kick things off as we do at the point guard position. And your most pricey option tonight, Chris Paul going against the Phillies. Once again, baseball on the mind. I can't wait. Either way, Philadelphia.
It's that hat you're wearing. It's just sending the baseball vibes into your brain.
I know, and it's hard not to be excited. We're a week away, so I mean,
Yeah.
we're getting close. But either way, Chris Paul against the Phillies or the Sixers, a mismatch, and not a guy I'm paying for in a game that should be well in hand by halftime.
Yeah, I pretty much agree there. Spread is sitting at 12, but even though the Clippers are on the road, you just have to expect they could really easily dominate this game, especially in the paint. And you look at it from that perspective, that's where the production's probably going to lie if this game gets out of hand. And they're just really not going to need Paul too much. So even though his price is tempting on DraftKings, he's about 900 cheaper than FanDuel. I'm still not going to go that route. So
Yeah, I mean, he's got the upside and assist there, but like you said, probably not going to need to score much. That interior defense is just horrible. So no thanks for me. Next up, we've got John Wall, another guy I want to talk about, and he is, once again, big-time discount on DraftKings, $8,600. As we know, he plays great at home, struggled in a couple road games there, came back home, huge 54-point fantasy outing, 34 real points. I believe it was his season high. So his price there, $8,600, is great, 95 on FanDuel, not bad, and going up against Kemba Walker, and maybe only Kemba Walker, with Mo Williams missing practice yesterday and being questionable now. So I'm a big fan of John Wall tonight. You on board?
yeah, I like him in that range. Like you said, he's substantially cheaper on DraftKings, so he's a better target over there. I'm kind of looking at him on par with Damian Lillard tonight. Lillard's a little bit cheaper, and if that's an issue, if I can't quite fit Wall in, I might spin off towards Lillard. He's playing in a fast-paced game at Phoenix, and this is actually one of the more competitive games of the spreads above 200. So I really like the spot for Lillard. I don't think LaMarcus Aldridge is fully healthy. Nick Batum is questionable still. I think a lot of production is going to get pushed out Lillard's way once again.
Yeah, I completely agree there. And he's another player. There's not a ton with significant discounts on DraftKings tonight like there were recently, but he's another one, $7,800 compared to $8,800 on FanDuel. So definitely DraftKings much easier to get him in, but I'm with you there on FanDuel as well. I mean, he makes for a great play tonight. A couple other guys we want to look at. Reggie Jackson, assuming that Greg Monroe is out. We'll see. He's listed as questionable, but I mean, he's really carrying the load right now with Monroe out. A lot more shots to go around, but his price really getting up there. $7,900 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel he's at $8,000. So, or I'm sorry, I got those backwards.
Yeah.
But either way, pretty pricey for a guy on a 13-game slate tonight who, yes, he's got a fine matchup against Orlando. Elfrid Payton giving up a lot of fantasy points, but I just don't know if I wouldn't rather just pay a little bit more for John Wall or even a little bit less on DraftKings for Damian Lillard.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there. I really don't mind Jackson, but I just think those other guys have more profit potential for, similar or maybe a little bit more of the price tag. So
Yeah, completely agree there. One more guy I want to mention, then I'll give the floor over to you to some other guys you want to look at. I'm looking at Kemba Walker. I mentioned a minute ago. This is if Mo Williams is out. I mean, John Wall not exactly playing the best defense right now. He's giving up some points. And Kemba Walker struggled pretty badly in his last game against Brooklyn in a nice matchup against Deron Williams. He ended up with 28 fantasy points, which isn't terrible, but really bad start. Kind of struggled for a lot of that game. But we saw Mo Williams struggle in that game also, and like I said, questionable. If he sits out tonight, and only if he sits out, I do like Kemba Walker.
Yeah, I like that pick too. Washington actually profiles pretty decent in the defensive efficiency rankings, but I think Walker will probably make up for that in volume if Mo Williams sits out. Washington really likes to kind of push the production out to the perimeter, and Walker should see a lot of shots. And on top of that, Al Jefferson isn't fully healthy. He is probable to play tonight, but I mean, he just really hasn't looked like himself. He's got some lingering injuries, so that just helps Walker's cause even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I know at least one value guy that you're mentioning. I saw you write him up earlier today, so who are you looking at here cheaper?
I like Jeremy Lin. He has a decent matchup tonight at Toronto, who ranks 27th in defensive efficiency against point guards. Still a reasonable price tag. He's in a starting role. He's going to be locked into 30 minutes, it seems. And, I mean, the Lakers really need him to score. They have Jordan Hill. Is he out officially? Yep, it just came in on RotoWorld. Boozer and Hill are out, so, I mean, you got Ed Davis, Tariq Black in the front court. They really aren't going to be taking as many shots as those other guys, so, I mean, that's more production Lin's way, and I think he's a pretty safe bet to be around 30 fantasy points once again.
Yeah, and at a really nice price still. So $5,600 on FanDuel and DraftKings at 54. So I think he's the punt play of choice for tonight, and I definitely agree with you there. You can look at a guy like Zach LaVine. Looks like Ricky Rubio's not going to play once again. But, I mean, he really, despite big minutes, he doesn't have a lot of upside. He seems like he has a safe floor due to the, just time on the court. Minutes equal production, but not so much in his case. I mean, just a perfect example, 2 games ago against Utah, played 46 minutes, scored 27 real points, but had 29 fantasy points. So,
and you can't bank on him swishing threes with a hand in his face like he was that game.
No. So, I mean, he's a risky option, but he's a guy who could have similar production to Jeremy Lin. But for me, it's Jeremy Lin easily between those two. Anybody else you're looking at?
Especially if Patrick Beverley's playing, there's no way I'm going to touch LaVine because Beverley's just going to pick his pocket. He's probably going to have about 5+ turnovers. But
it looks like Beverley's probably going to be out. I guess he's getting a second opinion on his wrist. I think he doesn't want to get surgery, but it looks like he's probably going to be out.
Either way, I don't really love it. I'd rather go with Lin. But speaking of the Timberwolves, a guy who I would be looking towards is Lorenzo Brown. For basically minimum salary. He's 3.2K on DraftKings, 3.9 on FanDuel. If Kevin Martin is out, I really like him. I think he's an okay punt play. You can plug him in there. He'll see 35 plus 40 minutes, and you can just hope that he reaches 25, 30 fantasy points, and he could kind of replicate that production that you would get from Lin for a much cheaper price.
Yeah, and I really like that call, too. I mean, it remains to be seen if we'll even actually know what's going on with Kevin Martin. I feel like he's on the probably wrong side of playing as he is recently with being a veteran and lingering injuries. No point in them risking him right now in meaningless games. But Brown's been playing minutes, and he's been similar production to Zach LaVine, like you mentioned. So get him at a really cheap price. I like that a lot. All right, next up we got shooting guard. So your obvious option here if you're paying up, which I probably will not be today outside of tournaments, is James Harden. But at his price, you got Dwight Howard supposed to be back to 20 minutes tonight now. Everyone else healthy outside of Beverly, who really doesn't take away any production anyway. And especially with Jason Terry likely starting for Beverly. I mean, Harden's going to get the opportunity, but what is he going to really need to do at $11,500 tonight?
Yeah, they really won't need him much tonight. And the blowout potential is pretty big in this one with the short-handed Timberwolves and Houston playing at home. I think it's a 13-point spread, so I mean that's a lot of risk going into 11.5K on both sites. I just don't really see the point, and there's some pretty decent value options at shooting guard.
Yeah, completely agree there. And my top option, if I'm paying up, obviously not to that level, I'm going to DeMar DeRozan. We talked about it a million times. Well, maybe not a million yet, but it might get there by the end of the season. When Lowry's out, you play DeRozan. When DeRozan's out, you play Lowry. Lowry's out, I'm playing DeRozan. He's going against the Lakers. It's pretty simple tonight.
Yeah, I really like that pick. Obviously, great matchup, more production with Lowry out. Even though he's kind of underwhelming last game, still really like the spot for him.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at his last 10 games, 20 or more real points. So you like to think that his assist numbers may be up a little bit with Lowry out. You know, kind of spotty on the rebounds. He had 7, then he had 10, then he had 2. You can't really rely there. But if you can get your 20 to 25 points, maybe 6, 7 rebounds, then he's your nice safe play there. And he's got some upside when he gets hot for sure.
Yeah.
Elsewhere at shooting guard, I want to get your take on this guy. Really cheap, but coming off an injury. He's played 2 games. $6,800 on FanDuel and $7,000 on DraftKings. Klay Thompson.
I don't have him written up. Memphis kind of worries me a little bit, but then again, there's something to be said. Memphis kind of countering the bigs of Golden State, and Klay's going to have to shoot over them. So I like that as a tournament pick. That's a nice diversifier. I mean, he flew under my radar initially, but yeah, I see the merit for tournaments.
Yeah, and a lot of it's the price tag. I mean, obviously, he only played 18 and then 25 minutes the last 2, so you hope that he plays more towards 30 if you roster him tonight. But I think for a tournament at that price, I mean, he's got as much, if not more, upside than anyone else in that range.
Where does Golden State stand for their in terms of seeding and how far ahead they are? I mean, do they need this game?
I believe they're in the 3 spot, the 2 or the 3 spot right now.
Okay.
So I think they're in a good spot, but I don't think they're quite solidified. Here we go. They're in the 2 right now. 8.5 behind Golden State, game and a half ahead of Houston. So, I mean, they still have plenty of incentive to try and lock down that 2 spot.
Okay.
Because you definitely don't want to be the 3 with Clippers, San Antonio, Dallas right all around there. I mean, even Portland. You don't really want to be facing any of them in the first round. So, elsewhere at shooting guard, a guy that I've been riding a lot. We've been talking about him. And he's been playing ridiculously good basketball. Orlando's struggling against shooting guards right now. Bottom 5 over the last 3 weeks. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Obviously, an uptick if Greg Monroe sits out again. But at $5,500 on FanDuel and $52 on DraftKings, I like him either way. The guy's got confidence riding high. 24, 20, 15, 27, 26 real points in his last 4 games. So I'm in love with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope again.
Yeah, I have him highlighted here as well. If Greg Monroe's out, probably go with Caldwell Pope in probably 90% of my lineups and on FanDuel as the second shooting guard over there. But if Monroe's in, I'll probably taper down some of that. But yeah, like you said, he'll still see minutes, he'll still see shots, so should be all right.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other guy I want to mention here, near that price range, J.R. Smith. A guy that I hate rostering because he's just so volatile. I mean, kind of disappears at times. I mean, you look at his games, he alternated good games, bad games for a while. But if you look over his last 6 games, 3 games of 30-plus fantasy points, and he's not all scoring now. I mean, still primarily a scorer, but he's a guy he's had a couple assists, a couple rebounds each game now. And in a game against Brooklyn, LeBron James, we saw it last time, he didn't need to do a whole lot because, Brooklyn can't stop him, but as a whole, they're pretty terrible in interior and all defense, really. So we saw J.R. Smith only play 27 minutes against them last week, 24 fantasy points. I think he's a nice tournament play at that price.
Yeah, definitely someone for tournaments. As far as cash games go, there is a little bit of a blowout risk here, and it's J.R. Smith. So, yeah. He could go 0 for 7, and the Cavs could still blow him out, and then he's just kind of sitting there with 10 fantasy points.
Yep. One other guy I want to talk about, and then I'll see who else you're looking at. Monte Ellis absolutely owns the Spurs this year. I'll be the first to admit it as a Spurs fan. But said it last time beforehand. He's at 7,066 on DraftKings. He's obviously not going to score 38 real points against the Spurs tonight. You like to think Kawhi Leonard's probably going to see some time on him, which is obviously a tough matchup. But when this guy gets hot, I mean, Spurs don't have a rim protector. Kawhi Leonard's not going to be the rim protector, obviously. So if he's hot getting to the rim, I mean, he's in a nice spot for tournaments, but definitely very, very low floor when he struggles right now.
Yeah, he's more of a tournament option that I would say is also cash game playable if he works. And I don't know, I kind of wrote this up in the FanDuel stock report on FanDuel Insider earlier this week that he was really struggling, but he was also seeing, 20, 25 shots a game. So you kind of had to figure that this breakout performance was coming at some point in time. But I mean, that's not necessarily going to be the case moving forward. So just be aware of that risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did see a stat about him. I don't remember the exact number, but it was something around 20 or 35% usage rate for Monte Ellis in the fourth quarter of the season. So that's all well and good. But we saw last time he was a big reason why they ran away with the game. Spurs struggled second half, but Spurs are a 9-point favorite in this one. So if it gets out of hand the other way, maybe there is no fourth quarter for Monte Ellis. So another risky factor there. Who else you like in here at the 2?
As a punt, I kind of like Elijah Millsap. Considering that he might start tonight, Rodney Hood is out, and he has been starting for the Jazz. So Millsap could see about 28, 30 minutes again in a starting role. Gordon Hayward will be back tonight. He's listed as probable, so that kind of dampens his enthusiasm a little bit. Last time he got the start, Hayward was also out. So, I mean, look to see if Millsap's going to get the start. If he is, he's an okay punt play, just due to, positional scarcity at the shooting guard position.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's surprisingly on a 13-game slate, not a lot of guys you feel great about in your lineups tonight. So, one more tournament option I want to throw out there. Probably don't need to tell you about this. We already mentioned Kyle Lowry. Sweet Lou Williams, $4,700 on FanDuel, $45 on DraftKings. Really hasn't had one of those big, hot shooting type of performances recently.
He's due.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people
hear
the do thing, but it hasn't happened in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, he has 19 and 18 real points his last 2 games. So
the only thing that concerns me is that he isn't really seeing an uptick in minutes with Lowry out. I don't know if that's just a quirk because sometimes they'll go with Lou, sometimes they'll go with Vasquez. I guess that's the merit in tournaments in case he does, get more minutes than Vasquez. But yeah, I guess we'll just see how it plays out. Great matchup if he does get the minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, as you see the theme here at shooting guard, a lot of risk, but definitely a lot of upside with a lot of these guys also. So small forward, I'm going to let you tell me who your top play is here so that I don't look like a homer and see if I'm wrong here.
Yeah, you're just going to make me say it, huh?
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Kawhi once again on both sites. He has a little better price tag on DraftKings. Yeah. But yeah, I'll target him on both sites. This is a good matchup for him. As we saw last time against Dallas, put up 44 fantasy points, and they actually kind of left some on the table too. I think he could have had more. But yeah, he's just extremely safe pick to hit value, and he also has upside if he gets, a few more steals, a few more buckets.
Yeah, I mean, if this game stays close, then he's going to see big minutes. That's really the only concern with Kawhi is that he sits with the rest of the starters now when the game gets out of hand, like we saw against OKC last time. But still, 31 fantasy points in 23 minutes. I mean, not at all scoring dependent. Guy does it all. Obviously, you know that I love him, but I definitely love him from a DFS perspective too, because he fills it up in borderline mini LeBron types of ways. So maybe I'll get some hate for that, but he does.
Well, yeah, from a box score perspective, yeah.
Yeah.
But do you have a Kawhi jersey yet, or?
No, I was actually talking to my wife about that, and I don't buy a lot of jerseys because I hate buying. She's a Detroit fan, so every time we buy her a jersey, player leaves. Like her last one was a Sue jersey. Obviously, he's gone. So when I buy a jersey, it's going to be someone who's either retired or I know is sticking around. So I did tell her Kawhi's going to be my next Spurs jersey. I rock the Duncan ones now, but it's got to be Kawhi. He's not going anywhere. If he leaves, I leave.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, looking down a little more at small forward, Andrew Wiggins is the next guy I have, especially if Kevin Martin's out. If Kevin Martin's in, he's an okay play. Really limits his upside. But if Kevin Martin's out, I really love Andrew Wiggins, especially for 6K on FanDuel. As we saw, he's going to play a lot of minutes. I mean, you look at these game logs, 49 minutes in the past 2. Granted, some overtime played into that, obviously. But yeah, he's going to take a ton of shots if Kevin Martin isn't there to chuck up 3-pointers. So, I mean, you got to love the volume.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if nothing else, you've got the opportunity if he gets hot. And I remember that long stretch he had earlier in the season with 20 or more real points, and I don't remember how many games, but it was a rookie record, I believe.
Yeah, that was with Kevin Martin out also.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you just look at that, his production's, directly tied to Kevin Martin's status.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And his price is one of the lowest it's been all season. We saw him up over $7K for a while, and he's sitting here at $6,000 tonight on FanDuel, and on DraftKings he's at $65. So fine price in both. Like you said, he's getting tons of minutes. If Martin's out, I mean, he's the main focal point of the offense because you don't have any other actually good offensive players outside of Wiggins. Obviously, he's raw, but really no one else that you can rely on to score the ball for them.
Right.
Elsewhere here at small forward, you've got guys like Trevor Ariza, who's seemingly about 55 years old now, but been getting it done every night. I mean, you obviously aren't expecting 44 fantasy points like he had last game, but outside of the game against Indiana with 18, you're looking at 44, 39, 30, 32, 32, and then you skip the Utah game and 32 or 33 and 30. So he's the consistency guy. I mean, if there's not anything else to say about Trevor Ariza, he just gets it done every night.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I don't really like Trevor Ariza, but you know how you get those FanDuel updates, mid-season updates, and it shows you, your biggest scores, your best lineups, and then the guys you roster the most. Trevor Ariza was like second on my list.
Yeah.
But he's always like well priced and just sitting there, and he's a nice little filler in the small forward spot. Obviously, you're a little worried with the blowout tonight against Minnesota, but I believe Corey Brewer is. Never mind, he's probable. I was going to say if Corey Brewer's out, that makes him a little better. But yeah, I like him as a cash game filler at 5.8K on FanDuel.
Yeah, and definitely you got he's a ball hawk, so you've got guys like Zach LaVine who turn the ball over a ton. Yeah. I mean, I like to think you might be able to get some transition buckets, some steals, definitely be able to take advantage of these guys before they run them out of the building tonight. So Trevor Ariza getting it done at the ripe old age of, I don't know how old he is, maybe 36, I'll guess, actual age.
Man, we need to look that up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna guess 36. I don't know. I haven't looked it up, but
I'm taking the unders just because
he's up there. I mean, I remember him playing for the Lakers. I feel like a decade ago at least. Maybe I'm exaggerating on the length, but either way, I mean, he's been around for quite some time. So
he is 29.
No, he's not.
No, I'm not even joking.
Trevor Ariza is 29.
The Trevor Ariza.
Wow. I was really exaggerating about the Lakers thing. It just seems that long ago, I guess.
He's been in the league 10 years, so.
Okay. All right, so it was 10 years ago they played for the Lakers then. All right.
Yeah.
Either way, it seems to me like he's been around forever. But,
yeah.
I mean, at 29, wow. I thought he was getting up there in years. My apologies, because I'm 29 also. So
you take that back.
Yeah, Trevor Ariza going to come and tell me I'm 55 now.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, man. Either way, small forward, other guys we've got. Cheap guy, tell me your thoughts on him. He's been getting a ton of minutes. I think you know where I'm going with this one. Chase Budinger.
Yeah, I mean, that's another Kevin Martin. I mean, it's weird how, all these value plays are pretty much hinging on one guy tonight. But that's how it goes this time of year. If Kevin Martin's out, Chase Budinger, he's another guy. He's probably the number 2 offensive option behind Andrew Wiggins because Zach LaVine, I don't know. He just does whatever he wants out there at times. But, he's been seeing, 35-plus minutes sitting in the 2 to 3 spot for the Wolves. And, even if Minnesota wants to go small, we'll put him at the 4. So he could see time at a couple different positions, and he's got a nice price tag built to do his recent production.
Yeah, and Budinger is a guy who is a scorer. I mean, he was a scorer in college. He was a scorer earlier in his career, and like we mentioned, I mean, Minnesota really doesn't have guys that can shoot when you've got Kevin Martin out. And, I mean, really, other than Kevin Martin, they don't have any other reliable scorers. So Wiggins, like we mentioned, and Chase Budinger are the guys I'd prefer to look at rather than Zach LaVine.
Revenge.
Oh, yeah?
He used to play for Houston.
That's right.
He's going off tonight.
Yeah, there's the call right there. Chase Budinger revenge for both minutes he played when he was in Houston.
Don't quote me on that.
Oh, I mean, I know he played for Houston, if that's the quote. He definitely played for Houston.
No, don't quote me that I'm high on him because of the revenge factor.
All right, I got to ask now. Over-under fantasy points for him on FanDuel, 25.
Assuming Martin's out?
Assuming Martin's out.
Over.
All right, I like it.
Okay.
Locked in right now. all my lineups are set. We're done. We're done with the show. Thanks for watching.
Come back on me if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's not out of the realm of possibility, especially if Martin sits. So
yeah,
he's been doing right around there anyway. So anybody else you like here at small forward?
Another filler, obviously, if Martin plays and we're off of Buttinger, maybe PJ Tucker. Like we said, that's going to be a competitive, high-scoring game. Nick Batum's questionable. I think that really helps Tucker's status in a faster-paced game. Other than that, I don't really know if I like anyone in this range. I don't know if we can trust anyone sitting below 5K or so.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That's pretty much about the only way that I'm going to be reaching there at small forward tonight. So, all right, moving on to my favorite. Well, I don't know about my favorite play of the night, but my favorite player if I'm going to pay up, Anthony Davis against Sacramento tonight. I mean, whether he sees DeMarcus Cousins, if he sees Rudy Gay at the 4, hopefully for Rudy Gay's sake, he doesn't see Rudy Gay at the 4 tonight. But Anthony Davis is in line for a big game. I mean, as everyone knows, the Pelicans have to win. They're in a heated playoff battle, and Anthony Davis, since come back from his injury and then coming back again from another injury, I mean, he's just been tremendous. So if you want to pony up to 12-4 for him on FanDuel, pretty risky, really pricey outside of a tournament, but 11-2 on DraftKings, I can definitely see playing a little bit more Anthony Davis tonight.
I agree with that. You know, that the price discrepancy is probably the highest of anyone in the industry tonight.
Yeah.
Talking FanDuel to DraftKings, so much better play over there on DraftKings. On FanDuel, to me, it comes down to which cheap plays open up. If Kevin Martin's out and you can, work in Lorenzo Brown or Chase Buttinger, I mean, it's going to allow you to reach up to Davis and feel pretty comfortable with your lineup. If that doesn't happen, maybe it's not worth it. But on paper, this matchup is great. Sacramento, 27th against power forwards in terms of defensive efficiency. They play up in pace. It's a high-scoring game. And it's at home for New Orleans. And Anthony Davis has higher splits there per his career. So, I mean, all those contextual factors really line up for him.
Yeah, and we know the scorekeeper likes to start Anthony Davis's stat line at home with 1 steal and 2 blocks. Something around there. I think that's the going joke.
We know who the scorekeeper has in their FanDuel lineup tonight.
Yeah. I mean, he likes to have
100% exposure. Yeah.
So, I mean, either way, seems that he might not need help getting to 60 tonight, but he might be getting it anyway. So, props there to anyone who knows that scorekeeper, because I think he and Anthony Davis are good buddies. Maybe he's a UK fan.
Yeah.
All right, elsewhere at power forward, LaMarcus Aldridge, we already mentioned, kind of banged up. No thanks for me. I think you're of the same thinking there. Blake Griffin, great matchup, incredible matchup, but probably going to be a blowout. They don't need him to do a whole lot. I think they're still trying to take it a little bit easy on him, if possible, with coming off the injury.
If there was a bonus for dunks and alley-oops, I might consider him, but there's not. So
yeah, stack the Clippers front court if you get dunk bonuses.
Yeah.
Because there might be 30 of them tonight.
Yeah.
Other guys you got, I mean, all right, I'll ask you this. Do you think there is any possibility that we see Atlanta tonight? I mean, Whiteside's already out. It's possible and maybe likely that Wade and Chris Anderson both sit out as well. What do you think the chances are of Atlanta sitting someone? If so, who do they sit?
I think it's pretty likely. I think Jeff Teague is definitely the one you have to look at because, I mean, he had an ankle injury last time. Came back, finished the game, but, I mean, we don't know if there's swelling or anything going on. Probably want to keep an eye out for that as the day goes along. Obviously, we should have probably mentioned this in the point guard section. Dennis Schroeder would see a huge uptick. Someone to consider in all formats if that's the case.
Yeah, 100%.
Other than that, they've what's that?
100% Schroeder if Teague sits, especially cash games for me.
Other than that, they've been playing Paul Millsap heavy minutes, so you have to wonder if it's his turn to sit out either him or Al Horford. Not really sure. They're probably just going to see, who's feeling what on tonight. And I guess if one sits, the other becomes a really good play.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you have to weigh the blowout factor here. 13-point spread, especially with all those guys sitting.
With basic talk, you can start saving as much as 75%.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going with the with the Atlanta talk there about Paul Millsap, kind of wondering if he's going to go because obviously he's in a good spot. I mean, Miami, we've talked about it before, they don't have a true power forward. Millsap, one of the better post players in the game. So, you know, if there is a spot to play Millsap, you know he's going to play. This is it, but you've also got the blowout factor. Maybe he sits, so really, really risky. And that's the frustrating thing about Millsap because especially on DraftKings at 7,300, he's got a tremendous price in this spot tonight.
Yeah, you know who I like more for the same price on FanDuel, though?
Same price on FanDuel? I'm going to go with Derek Favors. Because he's also the only guy with the same price at power forward.
Well, okay, so yeah, it was kind of a giveaway.
But yeah, I mean, it's the obvious play here, of course.
Derek Favors at Denver. I mean, Denver notoriously bad against front court players. Favors has just been Mr. Consistency. 40-plus fantasy points in the past 3. You really have to like his chances of getting another one here.
Yeah, I mean, one of the hottest players in the game right now. He's playing tremendous, and like you said, the matchup doesn't get any better than this down low. Mm-hmm. So definitely like him, and his teammate as well, but we'll talk about him in a minute. Here's a guy that I really like for you. Brooklyn really struggling against the 4 and the 5, well, also the 3, the 2, and the 1, but especially the 4 and the 5. Kevin Love finally seems like he's there, and I'm a big Kevin Love fan, so maybe this is me loving him a little bit too much, but I think Kevin Love is in a tremendous spot tonight, and his price is just great. $7,300 on FanDuel and only $7K on DraftKings. I need some love in my life tonight.
That kind of sounds like a personal problem, but we won't go there.
I'll take it any way I can get it.
Yeah, I used to be a Kevin Love fan because I like the Timberwolves, but yeah, we all know how that went down. 7.3K on FanDuel, slightly cheaper than those other options, comparable options like Millsap and Favors. I think it's a little more risk-reward than those guys, particularly Favors, just because, as we mentioned, there's a little bit of a blowout factor. And the Cavs, you don't know. I mean, even if the matchup lines up well, you aren't really sure how the production is going to be spread on a night-to-night basis. It could be a Kyrie night. It could be a LeBron night. We really don't know. So there's a little bit risk in that regard, but, I mean, otherwise, I like him to go possibly for 20 and 10 once again.
Yeah, I mean, if you like the anecdotal things, I mean, you nailed it there with the production being kind of spread out, mainly with the 3 guys. But, I mean, any of those guys can go off any night. But, you know, the reports come out that LeBron's talking and saying he's frustrated with Kevin Love not being comfortable. Then they get him going last game. My thought, and obviously it's anecdotal at best, is they want to keep him going, keep his confidence high in a good matchup. So I think they're going to be feeding him the ball tonight because if LeBron needs to take over and win this game, he will. I don't think he'll need to, though.
Yeah, I really like that theory, too, then. I mean, they're going to want him to get kind of ramped up for the playoffs. They've been kind of resting him, giving him minutes off, days off, just for, you know, to take a game off. But, yeah, I'll buy into that.
Yeah, absolutely. One other guy I want to mention here, a little bit cheaper, and it pains me to say it, but Dirk Nowitzki playing well. Obviously a big game against the Spurs again. Spurs giving up the second most points to power forwards over the past 3 weeks. Fantasy points, that is. And Dirk had a nice game against them last time out. And Dallas hasn't played since that game. So $6,100 on both sites. You know what you're going to get. I mean, you don't expect 15 and 13 like he had against the Spurs. But 28 to 35 fantasy points is a great outcome for him. And that's what you expect. And at that price, I mean, he makes for a nice play tonight.
Yeah, I feel like we're having a little bit of deja vu here because last time I was on the podcast, it was Dallas versus San Antonio, I believe. But, yeah, I like him at that spot. What is he on DraftKings, did you say?
He's 61 on both.
Okay. Maybe on DraftKings, I might lean a little bit towards Markieff Morris. I will definitely have Morris on a few tournament teams just because he's such a high upside player. He's actually rebounding a lot better recently. I think that's because Phoenix going with a smaller lineup at times. They need to rely on him for rebounds. But he has tournament upside in that high-scoring game against Portland. So Dirk is probably the cash game spinoff. Markieff, I would look for higher upside in tournaments.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, much better price for Markieff there on DraftKings where he's 64 compared to 7,000 on FanDuel. So I like that. And here's an interesting thing for you. Donatas Motiejunas listed as questionable. He's got a back injury. Missed shoot-around this morning. So Seems like he's on the wrong side of questionable by missing shoot around. Maybe it was a precaution to keep him healthy for the game. But is Houston really going to risk him tonight? Because I don't think they will. They've got Dwight Howard back. So with all that being said, Josh Smith, smooth. What are you thinking about smooth against that terrible front court?
I don't know.
And this is obviously assuming Modi Eunice is out. I mean, obviously Modi Eunice plays, there's no chance I'm playing Josh Smith.
Here's the concern I have is that Josh Smith himself is probable. So he kind of has some lingering injuries too. So you have to think he has a little bit of a short leash himself if this game gets out of hands and they kind of want to preserve him. So, okay, price tag. I just don't know if I would go there. I just think there's too many question marks, even if the playing time opens up.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's a very risky play, but I mean, if he was 100% healthy, should get minutes. But yeah, like you said, I mean, he's got some lingering injuries too, and maybe they don't need him to. I mean, it shouldn't be a close game, like we've said a million times. It should be a blowout. So really, whoever's getting late run is going to be the play there. Yeah.
What about Marcus Morris for a very similar price? Obviously, we have to look at Brandon Knight's status.
Yeah, he's hoping to be ready to play, as last I saw. Whatever that means.
They said the same time last time.
Yeah. Well, they also said he was going to play Wednesday, and then.
Okay, so yeah, probably never mind on Marcus Morris unless we get word that something happened with Knight and he tripped on his way to the locker room and had a setback. But
which is possible.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, things have happened before like that. So
yeah. All right, I got a question for you here. I've got a sneaky play for you here. This is my under the radar guy. I'm going to play in a GPP that I think could pay off some big dividends. Jason Smith, $3,700 on FanDuel, minimum salary on DraftKings, 24 and 26 fantasy points his last 2 games. We know the Knicks, no depth, really not a lot of talent on the roster, and Boston, as usual, bad in the front court. What do you think about Jason Smith? Obviously GPP only, very risky, but at his price, he's got significant upside.
I like it. He's going to have a low ownership percentage, definitely. Price tag is down to a point where, I mean, it kind of negates some of that risk. Yeah, and you don't get minus points for getting dunked on, so that's always a positive when it comes to those Knicks front court players. So, yeah, I don't hate it.
All right. I'm glad you're on board. Who else is there, if anyone, do you like at power forward? I mean, you've got your cheap guys. You got Tariq Black versus Ryan Kelly. Both those guys should see big minutes. I don't love either one of them. I don't know how you feel. I guess if I had to choose one, I'd probably go with Ryan Kelly just because he's a better scorer. But I'm not going to force either guy into my lineup.
Yeah, I feel the same. If I'm making multiple tournament lineups, I'll definitely have a little bit of Kelly. But like is a very strong word when it comes to those guys. So, I'm kind of hesitant.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, I mean, that's all I'm really looking at in that range. Maybe Ed Davis on DraftKings is a little bit cheaper over there. Still not really a high upside play. He's not seeing the minutes we thought he would with Boozer and Hill out. Yeah, so, I mean, risk-reward play more than anything. If he does somehow get the minutes, which doesn't look extremely likely because he hasn't as of late, there is upside, but I just really wouldn't count on it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, he's a great point-per-minute guy, but they don't like to give him any minutes. So if there's a guy that's getting 18 to 20 minutes, it's really hard for me to ever roster him out in the lineup. So, all right, moving on to the bigger men, I should say, at center. We've got some really interesting options here and some not so interesting prices. We've got a guy like Andre Drummond, and this would obviously be contingent on Greg Monroe sitting out again, but he's playing well. $9,300 on FanDuel, though. No way for me. Too much.
Yeah, I agree. Better price tag on DraftKings, 8.6K. I'm going to say tournament only, maybe, if you can make it work, because Vucevic, he's a guy who can draw some fouls. I'd be worried about foul trouble in this game. As we know, Drummond, very foul prone. What about DeMarcus Cousins? Obviously, a lot better price tag on DraftKings, 9.6K compared to 11.1 on FanDuel. So, huge price discrepancy once again. Yeah, DraftKings really kind of making my life difficult by, tempting me with that 9.6K there.
I know it's hard. It's hard to avoid every single night with him, but I mean, it's a really tough matchup for him. Obviously, he's a much better player than Omer Asik. He's a very good offense player, but he does get a lot of his value off of easy buckets, putbacks, and offensive boards. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of offensive boards tonight to be had with the Brow and Omar Sheik down low, and even Alexis Ajinka, who's a good rebounder as well. So I'm not saying he's not going to have a great game, but I don't see any way I could pay his $11,000 price tag in this matchup on FanDuel. Obviously, some tournament lineups on DraftKings, yeah, at $9,600, but definitely too pricey for me on FanDuel tonight, I think.
Yeah, I think we both can agree. Who's a little bit better of an option for a cheaper price tag in the upper mid-range tier?
You talking upper, like Rudy Gobert upper?
Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, gotta be Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, at Denver, great matchup. I think you can go Gobert and Favors in the same lineup and feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get most of the rebounds down low. I mean, really on both sides there because Fareed, a solid rebounder, but Yusuf Nurkic, J.J. Hicks, and whoever else they put down there is just going to get eaten alive by these two guys. So I like that. And like you mentioned, Vucevic, only $7,800 on DraftKings. So prefer him a lot over Andre Drummond. I mean, obviously both in good matchups, but I mean, like you said, Andre Drummond, neither one a great defender, but Vucevic a much more crafty offensive player. So if he gets Drummond in foul trouble, I mean, he could be in for a huge night, and he hasn't had one recently. So back to the old adage again, don't want to say he's due, but if there's ever a spot, this is the spot.
Yeah. Right.
So
looking down a little bit deeper, I think a guy you can look at, but you really don't have to force in, is Gorgie Jang. Pekovic is out. What is Kevin Garnett's status? Is he doubtful once again?
I consider Kevin Garnett doubtful for the rest of the season right now.
Yeah, he is officially doubtful against the Rockets. So Jang's going to need to see heavy minutes again. I know he was frustrating the last time around. 33 minutes against the Lakers, only 15 fantasy points. I don't expect that to hold up again. I mean, they're going to need him to rebound the ball. It's playing up in pace against Houston. Dwight Howard's back. Kind of hurts the enthusiasm a little bit, but I mean, Gorgie Jang, as a rookie, he went up against Dwight Howard and had a 20-20 game. So, I mean, I'm not really that concerned about it. I think he's one of the better plays in that price range if you're looking in the middle tier to round out your lineup.
Yeah, I agree there. And there's a guy who I think is going to be one of, if not the most popular play on the board, and I got to get your take here. Obviously upside, but risk as well. Fine matchup. You know where I'm going with this one?
Yeah.
Brook Lopez. What do you think?
Okay, that's not who I thought you were going to go.
Oh, okay, well, there's others also, but this one was Brook Lopez. So what do you think?
Okay, I actually didn't have Brook Lopez written up. Are you looking at DraftKings or FanDuel?
His price is better on DraftKings, I should say. 7,100, 7,800 on FanDuel. But I mean, his recent production is just tremendous. I mean, he's absolutely on fire right now.
Yeah, he's a monster. I mean, he's basically the focal point for Brooklyn, which is kind of a long time coming that they're actually getting him the ball and getting him decent minutes. If they have any chance of staying in this game, it's through Brook Lopez.
And Thaddeus Young is out too.
Yeah, and that's going to be their game plan. So, I like the pick, especially where you can get him at a discount.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like your Gorgie Jang pick as well. If you want someone near that price, you could look at Marcin Gortat, because obviously Al Jefferson not 100%. He's been giving up some decent games, but I mean he's so risky because he doesn't play a ton of minutes most games. He's got a really low floor, so I've seen some people talk about him. He's really just not for me tonight.
Well, that's not who I thought you were going to say again. So
were you thinking? All right, I'm going to go one more here. Who you thought I was going to say? Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah.
Yep.
Obviously, great matchup against the Lakers at home. Problem is, I mean, what's his minutes going to be like? Sometimes he's in 24 minutes. Sometimes he'll get 30+. When he gets 30+, he's a great play. I mean, we just don't know that, though. And it kind of hurts that the Lakers are resting Hill and Boozer because that puts Ryan Kelly at the 4 spot with a little bit smaller of a rotation, which could pinch Valanciunas for minutes somewhat.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, I mean, he's another one of those guys, great point per minute guy, but you don't really know, can't really rely on what you're going to get there. So,
yeah. He's a fine cash game pick. I think he comes close to hitting value. Certainly won't post a line that hurts you, but I just think the profit potential could be limited for tournaments.
Yeah, I agree. One other guy I want to mention here, I don't know if you have anybody else, and this is obviously tournament only, Timothy Mozgov. They're going to have to play some minutes. Obviously, Brook Lopez is going to play huge minutes. He's really the only guy who stands a chance defensively against him. He's a fine defender. $4,900, and obviously his minutes fluctuating like crazy. Only played 17 minutes against Brooklyn last time, but put up 23 fantasy points. So I think he's an interesting play tonight.
Yeah, he's an okay filler around that range. The only problem I really have is with that last game against Brooklyn is he had 17 points and 3 rebounds, which is kind of frustrating. If you're thinking he's going to play against Brook Lopez tonight, Lopez likes to take some jumpers, so that could draw him away from the basket, really lower his rebounding totals. So I see him a little bit more risk reward, just because of that. But yeah, if you're looking in that range, he's the only one I really would have much confidence in at all. So
yeah, all right, good point. Anybody else you like at center?
No, not really. I mean, I think we covered it all.
Definitely. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us here for this Friday. Enjoy your 13-game slate. Check out some great content we have at dailyfantasycafe.com. I'm at Big Italy 42. He is at Spencer_JL. We are at DF Cafe. And we will see you guys again next time.